Namaste, Jai Hind, and this is a conversation I always look forward to because often we are always in this whole argument between science and spirituality. Are they two parallel tracks or are they leaning on each other? So when you have a neuroscientist who's also talking about a higher consciousness and is the chair of the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi Foundation, then you know that there is science and spirituality. They're not parallel lines. They work simultaneously. Dr. Tony Nader, namaste.
Namaste, it's a joy to be with you again.
Yes, again. So, and now you've just written another book which says consciousness is all there is. So let's start from there. If science comes and says eventually it's all about consciousness, and spirituality also is about a higher consciousness, how are the twain meeting? Explain this to us.
Reality is one, ultimately. You cannot be two realities, but we approach it from different angles, different perspectives. There are two things in science that people forget about. There is the scientific method, which is very reliable, repeatable, controlled studies, logical. And there is creeping into the scientific method a dogma, a belief, which is based on non-scientific factors. And that belief is that everything starts with some energy and develops, and that consciousness emerges later in the process. That's completely a dogma. Let's set this clear. There is no proof whatsoever that this is the case, and that is where a bit of philosophy comes into thinking how consciousness emerges. The ancient Vedic literature says that consciousness is primary.
Yeah.
Now, there is a gap here, and it is how, if consciousness is the origin, how does it appear as matter and physicality? This is what my book discusses. In part of it, of course, there are many other aspects, but basically to bridge the gap between if consciousness is primary, if everything comes from consciousness, how do we have this physicality and materiality?
Veda is knowledge, and it's also about the scriptures and the knowledge that's enshrined. And one of the aspects of Vedic practice is the Kumbh. So you were at the Kumbh. This is a Mahakumbh, 144 years, planetary alignments. Again, there is science in this whole alignment-wide special and constellation alignments. How was your experience at Kumbh?
My experience was very profound, dipping in with such convergence of humanity, in a sense, such a great number of people, at a place which has had before many of such worship and very deep devotion, leaves ripples in consciousness, and it's almost memorized and remembered by the atmosphere, by the place together. Because when you say that consciousness is primary, and in fact consciousness is all there is, it's all a manifestation of consciousness. So there is something that has been developed there, or there was an original value which has been strengthened by the belief in it, by the strength of it, by the planetary arrangement. And so when you come there, there is a moment of ecstasy, a moment of wholeness, a moment of unity.
Yeah, I felt it.
Yes, exactly. You dip down, it's like almost I go beyond the surface of reality and I am one with all of you, and you come out in a unity consciousness state. And so this really is scientific in the sense, science might not be able to kind of put consciousness in a lab and study it, but science can study the effects of consciousness. We can study what happens when you develop your consciousness, what happens when you transcend, what happens when you do such a thing. And the studies have shown that there is tremendous development in well-being, in wholeness, in behavior, in acceptance, in tolerance. And that is what we see beautifully in Bharat, in the great India. It's the most open heart in the world, which says, the world is my family. And Prime Minister Ji, I use the term Vishwa Guru. He said, I don't use this term anymore. I use Vishwa Bandhu, because we are the brother, or Vishwamitra maybe. We can use the brother, the friend of all. And that is because the culture, the tradition, the knowledge of India is true. And what is the truth? Truth is that we are all one, ultimately in the ocean and then the waves. We are many waves on the surface, but this is looking at ourselves from a very small, minor perspective of our reality. If we dive deep from the wave, we find we are the ocean. And if we are the ocean, we are one with everyone.
True.
And that's what you feel at the Kumbh. And it has so many wonderful effects on your well-being, on your health, on your hopes, on your, removing your mental tension, your anxiety, depression, because you just now are one with everything. You remove loneliness because you are one with everything, so you can't be lonely.
But Dr. Nader, there are always conflicting forces and also entities which tend to challenge the basic human value systems. So you talked about Bharat, and Bharat has a family value system. There is a certain respect. There are certain boundaries of morality and certain domains where people will not cross. But in today's day and age, we see influences which make abuse, even in terms of comedy, very stylish, or they believe this is what I need to do to draw viewers in. And then there are no boundaries. This entire aspect of freedom of speech also tends to work where many feel it dilutes our core value systems. How would you look at what needs to be done to counter it? Are laws going to counter this? Or is parenting and perhaps reinstilling those value systems going to counter it? Because these forces are also popular and they have the ability to influence minds. So they can also corrupt an entire generation. So I want your thoughts there.
If I had to answer in 2-3 words, I would say Satyameva Jayati, which means truth always triumphs. And people try to mess up and have ideas, and there is some randomness and some chaos that can come, that can disrupt it. But ultimately, with time, that which is true will always be the winner. It will overcome the challenges. And what we need to do is experience the self. And by experiencing it, you know from first hand what is guiding you towards the right path. People think that we have to impose law, but law can come naturally when one is aligned with the self. So in yoga, there is yam, niyam, asanas, pranayam, pratyahar, dhara, dhyan, samadhi.
Yeah.
If you transcend, yam and niyam will become naturally evolved, because this system of going back to the self awakens within you that which is true. If you try to impose on people ideas as being dogma again, and that is how it should be, and there is no logic that they can understand, for example, in the Veda, in the Vedic literature, that are things that today are challenging. For example, you have people with 10 heads, you have 4 arms, you do this, you do that, and it sounds magical and unusual, and so the young people are threatened or challenged by their friends who are more down to earth on the right things, and then they will think, well, I'm embarrassed to say and to accept those things. But when you find that those even are scientific, that Veda and the Vedic personalities, the Vedic Devata, the Vedic realities are within us, and they are laws of nature, as Maharishi Mahesh Yogi has explained to us, has taught me personally and all, the world, that actually all of these are expressions of laws of nature in a more complex, sophisticated way.
Tell us a little about the Ramayana University. I believe you were in Ayodhya also. So you come to Bharat and then you're everywhere, at all the spiritual hubs. So what were you doing in Ayodhya?
Yeah, when I'm in India, in Bharat, I want to be everywhere, because everywhere there is something to learn, something to experience. It's wonderful. So Ayodhya is a great place. It was Maharishi's desire that a university would be there and that would teach Ramayana in a scientific way.
Before you complete, do you feel that place has changed? Do you feel the energies there have changed?
Absolutely.
Ever since the temple and Pran Pratishtha, do you believe there is a different vibe?
Absolutely, absolutely. There is a freedom, a liberation, an enlivenment of consciousness, and more is coming as the temple is getting bigger and more completed. We went there and we, Ram Lala, we paid our homage and great experience. And the university is absolutely guided towards showing that all aspects of the Ramayana are science. Okay. They are science of life, science of living, science even of physiology. that all the characters and the dynamics that happen in the Ramayana are actually the dynamics of our own human evolution. So for example, at the end of the Ramayana, there is Ram Raj that gets established. How does it happen in our physiology? Ram Raj for our body and mind is enlightenment, moksha, liberation. And so I have done research on this as Ramayana.
You have your book, Ramayana and Human Physiology, yes.
Yeah, this one.
Yes.
And it actually shows where Sita is, where Ram is, why they interact like this, what are the dynamics that happen, where every rishi is in our body, even rivers, lakes, whatever Ram encounters in his past, they are all part of our human dynamics and human physiology.
Final question. Bharat, you travel the world. Do you believe this is, many say this is the century of Bharat. Prime Minister has put in a vision where we can, in the next 20-25 years, hope to be a developed nation. But everybody looks at development differently. So the Prime Minister's vision is that we have to be true to our culture, become the Vishwa Bandhu, as he said, Vishwamitra, and be a beacon for spirituality and spiritual solace. But do you see Bharat having that potential? The current Bharat around you, the people you meet, and you've been coming here for decades. So that's why I'm asking you, is there really, are we on the cusp? Is this our Jambavan Hanuman moment in our civilization?
With the blessings of Sri Narendra Modi ji, I think it is happening. It's really beautiful to see Ram coming back,